Hello, and thank you for joining us today as we study Catholic women. My name is Jenny Zahner, and today we'll be talking about St. Therese Lisieux. St. Therese of Lisieux appears like a contradiction in many ways. She was a cloistered nun, but she was made the patron saint of missionaries. She was a self-proclaimed little soul, but was the root of an intellectual and spiritual reform throughout the entire universal church. She may have appeared as the least among her sisters in the cloister. She was frequently bullied by them. But her deep interior life and her childlike devotion to Jesus has raised St. Therese to a place of honor higher than many learned theologians. Although her life was short and simple, she has become one of the most loved saints and one of the most influential people throughout the entire church. In her short life, she changed the world while never leaving her cloister and converted souls across the world. Her only published work is a short autobiography titled Story of a Soul, as well as some journals and letters that were made public after her death. So what made this little saint so great? Therese was born into a loving and pious family. Her parents both had a strong desire to be saints, and they were sainted after their death. Their names are Saint Zélie and Saint Louis Martin. She had 4 sisters, all of whom, like her, became cloistered nuns. Zélie, Therese's mother, died when Therese was only 4.5 years old. Soon after, another tragedy followed. A few years later, Therese's oldest sister and her second mother joined a Carmelite convent. Therese was so distressed at her leaving that she became extremely ill and almost died. While she was lying sick and people were praying around her, she looked up and she saw a statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and she felt like she saw it smile on her. After that, Therese was miraculously healed. She told people that she saw the Virgin Mary smile at her, but few people believed her. As a child, Therese began to practice mental prayer and began to grow closer and closer to Jesus, but she still struggled with several things. As the youngest of the 5 girls, Therese was very much doted on by her father and her remaining sisters. By her own admittance, she was a very spoiled child. She wanted to be good, but she hated to do chores, and she was so sensitive that she couldn't bear any form of criticism without erupting into tantrums and emotion. She knew she wanted to follow her sisters into the Carmelite convents, but nobody believed that this pampered, emotional child would be able to handle the rigors of convent life. However, on Christmas Day, 1881, Therese experienced a conversion that made her more sensitive to the needs of others and helped her overcome her desires as a spoiled child. A year later, St. Therese was able to join the convent at the age of 15. But it was a difficult journey getting to the convent. The Mother Superior of the Carmelites at first refused to let Therese join. The strong-willed teenager decided to go over the Mother Superior's head and ask for the bishop's permission. When the bishop refused, she went over his head to the Pope himself. When Therese was on pilgrimage in Rome with her family, she was allowed to visit the Pope, but she was instructed not to speak to him. However, when she got near enough to him, she fell to her knees and she begged to be allowed to join the convent. She had to be carried out by the guards. However, impressed by her courage, the Vicar General allowed her to enter the Carmelites. In the Carmelites, Therese loved the lifestyle. However, she struggled because she wanted to show such great love, and she felt like in some ways that was limited because she could not leave the convent walls. She had such a great desire to show love that she decided to devote herself to prayer. despite periods of intense dryness and suffering in prayer. Often she would be in the chapel trying to pray, and she would fall asleep from exhaustion. But she said she would always imagine herself as a little child in the arms of its mother. She would imagine herself in the arms of Jesus. To better love her sisters in the convent, Therese began to take up little sacrifices. Soon, every action, every joy, and every little suffering in her simple life became a prayer and an act of love. Of her strong desire to become a saint, Therese said, "God would not make me wish for something impossible, and so, in spite of my littleness, I can aim at being a saint. It is impossible for me to grow bigger, so I put up with myself as I am, with all my countless faults. But I will look for some means of going to heaven by a little way which is very short and very straight, a little way that is quite new." Therese often worried about her vocation. "I feel in me that I had the vocation of a priest. I have the vocation of an apostle. Martyrdom was the dream of my youth, and this dream has grown within me. Considering the mystical body of Christ, I desired to see myself in them all. Charity gave me the key to my vocation. I understood that the church had a heart, and that this heart was burning with love. I understood that love comprised all vocations, that love was everything, that it embraced all times and all places. In a word, that love is eternal. Then, in the excess of my delirious joy, I cried out, 'O Jesus, my love, my vocation, at last I have found it. My vocation is love.'" In 1896, Therese began to cough up blood. At first, she concealed her sickness and her suffering from her sisters, but soon her pain became almost unbearable. In 1896, Therese died of tuberculosis. She was 24 years old when she died. To her sisters, Therese seemed like no one special. However, the Mother Superior sent Therese's writings to other convents. She took it upon herself to share what Therese called the little way to holiness. Therese's rule of small daily sacrifices done with great love and with total surrender to Jesus was shared with other convents and with other Catholics. Within a few years, Therese was on the path to canonization, and within a few years, she became one of the only women to be made a doctor of the Church. Thank you for joining us.